So we have to go over all the extra news that had came up whilst I was on my trip, which includes this video clip which I saw going viral on social media the past few days, because honestly, this is a really dire and quite exacerbating thing. Yeah, I use that word. Today we're going over to a hit made by Woodward Sports Network on Twitter. They posted this on their main page. They have 100,000 followers, and of course, they're based in Michigan, so Woodward Sports Network does a lot of stuff based on Detroit, Michigan sports news. And on this video clip from November 22nd, which had 100,000 views, you had the hosts on the show go out there and talk about how Steve Yzerman wanted Steven Stamkos. Oh boy. Yeah, so this went out there and had a lot of people buzzing. I saw a lot of negative reactions to this, not because of the take or the people that are making the take, but because of what this take kind of means. You see, we're going to go over and leave a link in the description if you want to listen to the audio hit yourself. It's only a minute and a half, but I'll also leave a link in the description to this article published by Jack Sutherland on Red Wings Insider, because what I like about this piece is it goes out there and transcribes the comments made on the Woodward Sports Network show. Take a look at this. During a recent segment from the local Woodward Sports Network, host Terry Foster revealed a wild off-season scenario that nearly played out, but was broken up at the last minute. Foster said the Red Wings were in on former Tampa Bay Lightning captain Steven Stamkos. Everybody wants to talk about the Yzer plan. Well, he talked to a high-priced, high-profile free agent. You ever hear of Steven Stamkos? Steve Yzerman knew that Tampa Bay could not match. They were going to have to let him go. So he talked to Stamkos. Yzerman offered Stamkos a 3-year deal, basically for the money he's getting now, $8 million a year. Without naming the sources, Foster said that Yzerman told Stamkos he would match the incoming offer from Nashville for a 4th year of the contract, and that he went to his Red Wings CEO Chris Ilitch to talk to him about it. Then there's a little pause, and Nashville comes up and says, "We'll give you 4 years." Yzerman says, "Hang on, we'll match." He goes to Chris Ilitch, saying we can get Steven Stamkos. I know he's a little bit old, but he can still play. I offered him 3 years, Nashville offered him 4. According to Foster on the Woodward Sports Network, you had yourselves Chris Ilitch not responding. He said, "I'll get back to you." Yzerman said, "Get back because this needs to be quick. I need to hear from you today or tomorrow." He never heard back from the man. Nothing. Crickets. Then, at the bottom of the article, it says this: while Foster didn't cite any of his sources or proof, the Stamkos connection to Detroit would make sense considering Yzerman was his GM in Tampa Bay, as well as former Lightning assistant Derek Lalonde, now serving as Detroit's head coach. So this is it, eh? We have ourselves some, if you want to take all of this broadcast's video footage as truth, we have some official confirmation that the Detroit Red Wings were in on Stamkos and that they possibly almost got the deal done. I don't blame Stamkos one bit for not waiting for Steve Yzerman and Chris Ilitch's response, because who knows how long that would have taken. For him to have gotten that contract from the Nashville Predators, it's in a dollar range that he's comfortable with, it's in a year range that he's comfortable with. He's getting pretty much everything that he wants, and he knows that the Nashville Predators are willing to commit to him. It doesn't surprise me that he went out there and said, "Okay, sorry, Stevie, I know everything you've done for me, I appreciate it, but I can't wait for you any longer. I'm going to sign this contract right now." Not surprising in the slightest. Also not surprising the fact that Steve Yzerman went out there and went after Stamkos. We have been saying this for years, how Steve Yzerman has been in this spot to go after these middle-aged to overpaid middle to top 6 caliber centers, and Andrew Kopp and JT Compher, and then Steven Stamkos. I get it, of course. Stamkos is a much better player than those other guys. But it has been a pattern that Stevie Y has exhibited the past few years here, always going after some middle-aged guys that might be a tad overpaid. Not to say necessarily that Stamkos is overpaid. I mean, the guy was making so many things happen in Tampa Bay. There's a reason this guy got $8 million a year. It's just a question as to whether or not this was the right guy that the Red Wings really needed, and whether or not this would have actually helped the team in terms of their long-term goals. I say long-term and not short-term because, of course, having Steven Stamkos onto the team would probably win you a few more games here and there. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge how badly the Nashville Predators have been this season. Maybe it's not all too cut and paste after all. Who really knows? Another conversation has been brought up as well as to what this Steven Stamkos thing really means for the Detroit Red Wings. Not the fact that they didn't get him. Okay, that's fine. That's one thing. It's another thing to have seen him sign in Nashville. But you had yourself some replies like this one from the Grindline podcast. They're a good show. I've been on it before. Great guys over there. They talk about Red Wings stuff. They're Red Wings fans. If this is true, they say, and that's highly doubtful, then Steve Yzerman is handcuffed and he can't do his job to the best of his ability. And if true, the team needs new ownership fast. They're referring to, of course, Chris Ilitch not going out there and responding to Steve Yzerman and giving him a response on what Yzerman is capable of doing. Because, I mean, look, Yzerman has the opportunity to be like, hey, I'm going to sign this guy, I'm going to sign this guy, I'm going to sign this guy, but if it's a big decision, of course, he's kind of have to get the ownership involved just to say, hey, I'm going to commit 8x4, 8, 16, 24, $32 million to a guy who is so old and who was rejected by his former team because they chose Jake Gensel over him. I'm going to commit $32 million to a guy. Can I do that, Chris? Please, give me the go-ahead. And ultimately, if he did not get back to Steve Yzerman, then Steven Stamkos had no choice. And honestly, I think, like, for Red Wings hockey, if they were to give that money, if they were to get the go-ahead to do it, who's to say that Steven Stamkos would not have wanted to reunite with Derek Lalonde and Steve Yzerman? Obviously, it's nice to get those connections back, but at some point you gotta realize, hey, it's probably better for me to be getting $32 million instead of 24. Especially since who knows how Steven Stamkos' decline is going to go, whether or not that's actually going to be a big deal heading into the next 3 to 4 years. Getting more security in the now is ultimately setting you up for better things down the line. You cannot blame Steven Stamkos for not waiting. And then there's the other conversation as to whether or not this would actually make sense. Take a look at this. Andy replied on Grindline's post, no way he knows this info, but do we really want a 38-year-old Stamkos making $8 million? And the Grindline podcast replied, absolutely not. This makes zero sense. They've tried to spend close to the cap the last few years. I would be surprised if Yzerman even has to run by each signing past Ilitch since it's a hard cap league. He shouldn't have to run anything by them. He's hired to do a job. So at the end of the day, this is ultimately a big piece of information that we have been talking about. A lot of people have been up in arms going over the Steven Stamkos Detroit Red Wings conversation. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How does this make you feel? Do you feel a little bit off about this entire situation? Does it kind of irk you that Steve Yzerman was going out there and targeting Steven Stamkos? If Stamkos had signed with Detroit, how does that make you feel? Where do you think everything falls into place? Stamkos has been okay for Nashville this season, but the Predators themselves have not necessarily been too great either. So if you wanted to talk about Steven Stamkos and his potential impact with the Detroit Red Wings, how do you think that goes down? And what are your thoughts on Chris Ilitch apparently not getting back to Stevie Y in order to give the go-ahead to any sort of a big signing? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.